told them, don't grow up too fast. Make sure you're still young in your head.
Everybody, and welcome to this episode of Dadnormous. It's Jonscott Turco here with Patrice Naudy, talking to me from France. I appreciate all of you joining me today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the video. There's a little, I'm not sure which side it is, a little YouTube logo. Click on that and you can subscribe to our channel. Thank you for joining us, and we'll jump in. Patrice, thank you so much for joining me today from France. Where about are you? Are you in Paris or outside of Paris?
Yes, very close to Paris. I'm in Boulogne-Billancourt, which is very in the neighborhood of Paris. So yeah, particularly in Paris.
Yep. So thank you so much for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and let us know a little bit about your kids, and we'll jump in from there, please.
Okay, great. So I'm 54 first, and I'm married for 27 years. So it starts to be quite a long and interesting story. And we have 3 children. Our first boy, Charlie, is 26 these days. Our girl is 25, and the last one is 20, Arthur. So we have Charlie, Alexandra, and Arthur.
So you have older kids. They're kind of in my kids' demographics in that 20s range. So yeah. I'll start off by asking you what I ask most of the dads, which is if you can go back to before Charlie was born and give yourself some advice that would have helped you in these last 26 years, what advice would you give yourself, Patrice, back then in the 90s?
It's a good question, difficult exercise. I would say really enjoy as much as possible every day, because I think every different ages are so different, but you can go back. So make sure you enjoy when they're very young, a little bit older, and teenager, and then young adults. Make sure you take time enough to enjoy all the different steps.
That's a great piece of advice. It's funny. My friends used to call me on this because I would say, they'd ask how old my kids are, and whatever age they were, they're 5 and 4, they're 12 and 11. I'm like, it's such a great age. And they say, you always say that. I said, well, it always is such a great age. And it's not that there weren't hiccups and some challenges, but as you said, I think it's a great way of putting it. It's only here once.
Yeah.
So, even the challenges are here, and then they hopefully move past. But I do think that it's oftentimes, particularly dads of kids who are in like that toddler stage or teenage stages and some challenges, they just want to close their eyes and wake up when that's done. And it's a real opportunity to be present through all of it. Some of my most fun conversations with my kids now are, remember when we were in high school? I'm like, yeah, I remember. Do you remember? So if you think about your kids now, and they've started their lives, they're finished with uni and doing their thing. What advice do you think that if you could give your kids today in 2020, we're speaking now in late summer of 2020, what advice would you give them today based on, let's just say, short term, in the last 6 months and all the changes we've had in the world? Your kids are working, and probably your youngest is still in uni. What advice do you think, as they look back on this video, let's say, if they're going to watch this video in 2030, in 10 years from now?
Yeah, I think I would give them the advice that I heard by a friend of us a few years ago. He told them, I think it was a great advice, he told them, don't grow up too fast. Make sure you're still young in your head. And I think it's probably the advice I would give them today, because now they're young adults and they are projecting themselves. Of course, it's a world of work and finding partners and so on. And I think I will give them this advice: make sure at least part of you always remain a child, and make sure you don't forget this part. So don't grow up too fast.
That's great advice. It's great advice for all of us, to remain.
I take it for myself as well sometimes.
Have a youthful perspective on, and a curiosity. I think that's probably what I try to keep pushing my kids, to be curious about things. And, if you learn more about it, if you're curious, research it, learn about it. There's so many tools available for all
Yeah,
of us now to pursue things that we have interest in. And again, don't grow up too fast. I think, our kids are in that same demographic where I think there's so much coming at them. And then we have this, COVID now, and the future is questionable for different businesses or contracting and pivoting. And, our businesses are pivoting and adapting. And I think it's a great message to say, don't put too much pressure on yourself to figure it all out now.
absolutely.
So I definitely think that's a great piece of advice. So if I can ask you to think about when you were younger, when you were, let's say, your kids' ages,
Yeah.
and perhaps some of the advice you had from your own father and your parents, do you feel like there's some relevance in terms of what did it help you address over the course of your life from their age to your age now?
Hmm. I think what is similar, I think I was told to be curious and to try to look at different parts of the world. And this is quite similar because it's definitely this kind of advice that I'll still give them.
Yeah.
But what has changed, I think the world is much more complex and faster today. And it looks to me when I look back when I was 20, 25, it was same thing, very exciting period of my life. But I think it was not that complex and not going that fast, and we have probably more time to experience a lot of things. At that time, internet didn't exist, or were just the beginning. It didn't exist, absolutely didn't exist when I was 20, 25. So I used to tell my children, when you wanted to come to, to send a document, you had to post it. So you just wait 3 more days of person to receive it, and when you wanted to a contract sign, and you have to wait another 3 days to receive it back. And so it's just something that seems just crazy and so old-fashioned today, but it was the way it was when I was 20 or 25. But what is quite similar, I was told by my parents and some very good friends to be curious and to look at the world. And this is quite similar. I think it's something they experience today as well.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it really is, it's a timeless piece of advice, I think, to give. And hopefully our kids one day will carry that forward to their family.
Yeah.
So if you were to think back, I'll give you a little different piece. If you were to think back to your childhood and something that was given to you by your dad or your parents in terms of advice or guidance that you feel as if you intentionally did not take that advice for whatever reason, does something kind of pop up into your head in terms of that they had good intentions, but you chose to approach it differently?
Let's say especially my mother asked me quite a lot. She was very demanding, and she wanted me to be very serious, to work hard at school and so on, which was of course a good idea, and she did that for to protect me and to prepare my future and so on. But I'm quite happy not to have followed totally what she told me, because I think life it's a kind of balance, and it's a pity if you don't work enough, probably when you're young. But I think it's a pity when you miss also a lot of your years or not spending so much time with different kind of experiences or meeting people and so on. And I think it's difficult to find this right balance. But I'm happy not to have followed totally her advice and to make sure I spend some time to experience something that was not exactly what she asked me to do, but I think was great for my
And again,
experience.
as dads now, we have to also expect that our kids are going to follow parts of what we suggest, right?
Yeah.
Fine. It's an exercise, I think, in trying to be self-aware. And I say this to my kids sometimes, whereas, I'm not always going to agree with what you want to do, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about everyone signing off on what you choose to do with your life. As parents, we want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure that they're being conscientious about their decisions. And as kids, and if we're trying to remain somewhat youthful ourselves in our mindset and approach, we want them also to kind of like say, well, what happens if I do this? Or maybe I'll check this out. And it's not the most advisable parental, advice in a straight line. And I think, the lessons are learned in the curves, and
Yeah,
the lessons are not learned. You don't learn how to be a good driver on a straight road, right?
yeah, exactly. And hopefully, it will be terrible to do this.
So, so if you were to think about your legacy, I'd love to ask about this. So you're in your 50s, your kids are in their 20s. So if you were to, let's say, go forward, imagine 20 years in the future. So you're in your 70s now, your kids are in their 40s, perhaps they have their own families and children. And what do you want them to have as really present about Patrice, um, 20 years from now, about who you are as their dad? What do you want their kids to know about you? What do you want to be alive for them in those moments when they're experiencing, parenthood themselves?
Um, Perhaps I would like them to remember that everything is possible if you decide so. And and it's you can do so many different things if you just get the right motivation to do it.
Right.
You know, and as you say, life is not a straight line. You face a lot of difficulties sometimes. Uh, you are told to do a lot of things by laws, by family, by your parents, by friends, and most of them are right. But also, the most important, you find your own path, and to make sure that I would like to them, yeah, I would be delighted them to remember me as somebody that told them uh, everything is possible if you really fight for it and dream of it and work on it. And so don't imagine that you're not able to do this or to do this. So yeah, I would be glad if you remember this.
A great memory that is alive, hopefully, for them. So when you think now over the course of the last 26 years as a dad, if you could go back and do something over, a mistake that you made or something you'd like to change, is there something that you think of immediately when I say that? If you could change something around?
Mm, I don't know, but I will answer quite differently to this question because we did, definitely with my wife, it was not my answer, we did something very special with them, for them, that's definitely changed both our life and their life. It was 10 years ago, so they were 10, 13, and 14. And with my wife, we were just looking for a gift for one of them. It was a birthday coming soon, and I wanted to see what. And then we just asked ourselves, what could be, and this is what I would like to tell you, what could be the best present for a child? And this, we work on this like a joke first, but then we really thought about it. And we arrived to a crazy idea that we did it. Because 2 years after having this discussion with my wife, we took 1 year off, and the five of us, so with the children, and they were teenagers, remember, we decided to take 1 year off to travel all over the world. So we went to 19 countries as backpacker, and to meet what we call social entrepreneurs and environmental entrepreneurs. So just people working totally differently, try to fix unsolvable problems. And I think it was definitely the best present we give them. And it changed definitely their life. And today is very interesting because now today they start having interviews, for a training period, a job, and so on. And the first thing they say about it, about themselves, about their life, is they talk about this year. And
Yeah.
I think we are very proud of it. And it was just so exciting work to share that with you and with all the people that will watch this kind of videos. And I told you, everything is possible when you really decide to do it. And for me, it was definitely, and I still think today, it's the best present you can make to a child.
That's an extraordinary present. And I would agree with you. I believe, and anyone who knows me, believe that travel and experiencing different cultures and different ways of living is some of the best education we can give to our children.
Yeah.
So that's certainly an extraordinary way of doing it. So if I were to ask, because your kids are older, so if I were to speak to your three kids and ask them about you, what do you think that they would tell me about you as a dad? Just as open a question as that. What do you think they would tell me about
Um, mm, I don't know. And I'll try to be honest between what I expect them to say and what they will say. I'll try to be honest with that. Uh, no, I think they will say that dad is crazy, and crazy in a way that I like it. I mean that, meaning that. Yeah, I told you that we did different kind of crazy thing. Or I'd say, when I mean crazy, I mean something that it's not uh, that we didn't plan really to do it, and that people didn't expect me to do or expect us to do. Okay, so probably this is crazy, and also I hope somebody quite curious and yes, open to other people and to new experiences. Yeah,
That's great.
but maybe it's more than what I hope them to say. Maybe they will say something very different.
If you were to imagine your kids as parents in the future, what single piece of what advice would you think your first pieces of advice you think you would give to them as they become parents themselves? You'll say, let me just talk to you for a minute. What would you talk to them
Yeah.
about?
First thing I will say, what I say starting in this video, is make sure you spend time enough with your children. And again, at the different step of their life, because you can go back, and it's just a so wonderful experience, and I think it's, to me, it's the meaning of life, and make sure that you are not busy enough with your business or different issues, or let's make sure that you spend just time with them, and show them the world. Show them the world.
That's great. That's great. So we'll wrap up in a few minutes. Is there anything in terms of an overreaching thought or sentiment you'd like to share? And again, the goal for this channel is to be a resource, right, for dads of all ages, expecting their first child, having their fifth child, having toddlers. We have, some grandpas who've been on the show, and all the range. So if there's anything that you think could be important to share, I invite you to do so.
Yeah, I think something I try to do with them children also is to make sure they understand the value of, first, of course, of a family, but also the value between them, like brother and sister. And during our trip, we had different experiences, some very fantastic, some quite difficult, of course, and especially something was very interesting. We had fear altogether, physical fear, because you sometimes feel to be aggressed or something like that, fear of violence. I mean, and during this period, when you have brother and sister very close to you, you realize that in life, yes, when you have people very close to you that you can count on them, is something of a great value. So I always take some time to make sure to, I think, propose them to take care of each other. As I used to say, someday I will not be here anymore, but probably the sister and brother will still be there. And I think it's a great value also to try. It's not always easy, to build something between them as well. I think it was the job also of the father.
That's great.
Advice.
Yeah, that's great. It's really great advice. I appreciate it very much. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today.
Thank you again. I think it's a fantastic experience initiative that you are doing here, Jonscott. I would like to congratulate you for this. I think it's very innovative and a great thing, and I'm very enjoy watching the different videos. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And for those of you, again, that are new, please subscribe by clicking the link here. Check the description. I'll put a link to Patrice's organization, as company as well, and give you some more details. But thanks again for everyone for joining us today. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jonscott. Bye-bye.